Well, hello and welcome to one of our 4 programmes where we're going to try and bring back to life the 4 Cricket World Cups that have been held in this country: 1975, 79, 83 and 1999. And we begin with the very first Men's World Cup, 1975. And I am so thrilled that we're joined by 2 men who took part in that historic event. A World Cup winner with the West Indies, Derek Murray, joining us from Trinidad, where I should point out, by the way, at the time of speaking, Derek, what time is it in Trinidad with you at the moment?
It's 6:30 in the morning, so I'm just waking up to the beautiful warm dawn. So nice to be here.
Oh, it's brilliant to have you with us, and getting up so early. Dennis Amos, he's had a lie-in. Semi-finalist with England, also got the tournament off to a cracking start with 137 runs on the very first day against India. And Dennis is in Birmingham, as I say, he didn't have to get up quite so early to join us. 1975 World Cup. Can you just sum up to begin with, when somebody says that to you, what does it bring to mind?
Great excitement. It was the first World Cup, and we hadn't played much one-day cricket prior to that. Domestically we had. I think we had the competition that started in 1963, which was Gillette Cup. That was 65 overs, and it eventually came down to 60, and then of course we had the one-day internationals. We had played a one-day international after the 74-75 series against Australia, so and obviously I played 1 or 2 prior to that, but a wonderful excitement, all the great teams coming together in our country, in England, and everybody was just looking forward to it, and we had a wonderful weather to kick-start it for the first match.
I'm also delighted to say that Andy Zaltzman's in our London studio able to join us. Andy, thank you very much. You're involved with all 4 programmes, looking forward to it, I'm sure. But can you hit me with a stat straight away, Andy?
Before the 75 World Cup, there had been only 18 one-day internationals, 3 of which had been rained off. So were no results. West Indies, whom Derek played for and ended up winning the tournament, had only played 2 matches. India had also played 2 and Pakistan just 3. So it shows quite how new the concept of one-day international cricket was.
OK, let's get ourselves really in the mood. We're going to drop in every now and then a little bit of archive into our programmes, and I think this is certainly going to get Derek in the mood for things. Let's just listen to that very special moment at Lord's back in 1975.
And Thompson has a wild hit at that one, and Murray throws it, and he's out! He is out! Murray threw the ball down the thing, and Australia have been beaten. West Indies have won.
Derek, tell me that you can just picture in your mind, although it is ridiculous o'clock with you at the moment, so early, but just that ball into the glove. Does it still have a vivid picture in your mind?
It does indeed. I'm getting goosebumps just recalling it now. It really was, as Dennis says, it was an exciting tournament, and for the culmination to come at that time, and just the euphoria that we'd won. Didn't have much time to savor the moment on the field because the crowd was rushing on in some in ecstasy, some in disappointment, but it really was a tremendous feeling. It was 8:43, I believe, in the evening. Fortunately, it was Midsummer's Day and another glorious day in England, and really it was just a wonderful, wonderful moment to be the first champions of the World Cup.
OK, well, plenty more from you, Derek. I think first, maybe now, Andy, what we ought to do is just outline how the competition worked back in 75.
Well, in fact, it was 8 nations in total. The 6 that were playing Test cricket at the time, South Africa, were out of international cricket due to apartheid at the time. So Sri Lanka and East Africa, which was a combination of 4 African countries, they were roundly hammered in all 3 of their games. Sri Lanka heavily beaten in 2 matches, put up a decent show against Australia. So there were no shocks in this first World Cup. The first sort of upset came in 1979, 4 years later. But there were some truly extraordinary matches. The first game famously ended up in England winning by more than 200 runs after India made 132 for 3 in 60 overs, chasing a target of 335. there was an extraordinary semi-final. I'm sure we'll talk about with Dennis, where England and Australia had a very kind of thrilling, low-scoring game. England were bowled out for 93, I think it was. Australia 94 for 6. And Derek, you were involved in one of the greatest World Cup matches in the group stage against Pakistan, when you were involved in what is still the highest 10th wicket stand to win a second innings chase in a one-day international, when you put on 64 with Andy Roberts to beat Pakistan.
Yeah, that was really a high point for me personally, because basically the game was done and dusted. Pakistan were celebrating. That was at Edgbaston. I actually spoke to Andy Roberts last night. He's in Antigua, and we still stay in touch. Of course, he thinks he was the star of that show, but but it was great, and really it defined the World Cup for the West Indies. Had we lost that game, we were out of the tournament. Similar for Pakistan, and it was just great to eke out those runs. We had to get those 64 runs in 16 overs. And it was just eking them out, and we eventually won with 2 balls to spare.
What did you expect of yourself, Derek? What did you expect of the team going into the tournament, the West Indies?
Well, we were just hopeful that we would do well. We had the reputation of having particularly the batsmen who could thrill a crowd, score relatively quickly. So we were really excited, looking forward to it. Just as Dennis has the honour of being the first centurion ever in World Cup cricket, it would have been great for West Indies to be the first ever winners. And so we were really looking forward to it. A little bit people were thinking this game suits the West Indians, so we should win. So I suppose there was a little bit of pressure as the favourites. But it was all a learning experience. Will we get our tactics right? Will we bowl the right bowlers at the right time? Will we ensure that all the bowlers got their 12 overs in, and we didn't end up with one bowler having 2 overs to bowl at the end? But it really was experimental in many ways. And you felt that, look, what you do, what the other teams do, is also going to determine whether this experiment continues. And, here we are talking about it many years later, so obviously it worked.
Lillian Thompson, Dennis, the previous winter, England, Australia, it hadn't gone so well. What were the expectations of England?
Well, on our home ground, the expectations were quite high. We got a very good side, and in every department. So I think that we thought that playing in our conditions, that we had the advantage over teams like, the West Indies were obviously, as Derek says, favourites because they had such a great side, so many great players in the team. But we thought we fancied our chances to get to the final at least, and if we met West Indies, we'd hope we'd have a lot of luck and we might be able to beat them. But we were hopeful. We got into that extraordinary match where the atmosphere was conducive for swing bowling, and not only did it swing, but it also moved off the pitch as well. So Gary Gilmore had a field day and made the ball talk. And he was virtually unplayable.
And Clive Lloyd, we're going to hear a short interview with Clive in a few moments, Derek. He's an iconic figure, isn't he, of world cricket? Tell us about the man, about the captain.
And undoubtedly, and he's a charismatic leader, leads by example as well, because as Dennis was saying, we are flair players. And so Clive was at the forefront of that. So it really was just gelling the team together and making sure that all the parts worked, because whether you're bowlers, your batsmen, it was all well and good to be saying, okay, let's restrict the batsmen. But, when you've got bowlers like Andy Roberts, Bernard Julian, Van Bernholder, Keith Boyce, they want to get wickets. So, while the captain may be thinking, look, containment and, I'll set a field on the offside or so, they want to be bowling in swingers and out swingers and everything else. So it was interesting trying to hold it all together.
We asked for some response on Twitter leading into this programme, and Ken Grimes said he was at Headingley for England-Australia semi-final. Crazy game. Any more stats to throw at us, Andy? Any sort of references to what we've talked about so far?
Well, a couple of things. On Dennis's innings on that first day, 137, that remained England's highest score in a World Cup match until Andrew Strauss made 158 against India in 2011. On the same opening day, all 8 teams played on the 7th of June 1975. Glenn Turner of New Zealand made 171 not out. And against East Africa. And remarkably, Sunil Gavaskar's innings, 36 of 174, was not the slowest of the day. Mahmood Qureshi of East Africa made 16 not out of 88 balls as East Africa crawled to 128 for 8 off 60. And it shows, I guess, there was a degree of inequality, I guess, between the teams in terms of experience. Obviously, none of the teams were particularly experienced in international cricket. But if you look at obviously the England team, they'd all played county cricket for years. The West Indian team had a core of, the majority of the side, including Derek, had played several seasons in county cricket. And by comparison, India, Sunil Gavaskar, I think it was in his 8th list day one-day match. Karsan Ghavri, their opening bowler, took 0 for 83 off 11. He'd also only played 7 or 8 matches. So there was a big disparity in limited over experience in that tournament.
Losing the semi-final to Australia, they won by 4 wickets. Gary Gilmore, 12 overs, 6 maidens, 6 for 14. What was all that about, Dennis? And we make such big thing about the disappointment, the agony, the pain. This was such a new competition. Did it feel a painful experience there in that semi-final, not getting through to the final?
Oh, very painful, yes. I mean, we thought we got a great chance of getting through to the final, and to go out in such a dismal way was... it really did hurt. So there were 2 things there. Being bowled out for 89, although the conditions were very special for swing and seam bowling, and especially when Gary Gilmore was bowling, and not to get to the final and play the West Indies on home soil in our own country, it hurt. It hurt very much.
The West Indies beat New Zealand by 5 wickets in their semi-final at the Oval to get through to the final. Before we hear from Derek on that final at Lord's, let's hear from the captain himself, the West Indian captain, Clive Lloyd.
Being the first World Cup, we had a lot of young players. We had just come back from India. It was my first tour as captain. We were successful. The close series, it's 3-2, so we were bubbling too. And we had to beat Pakistan at Birmingham to qualify. We won, and we realized that, we have a chance of winning. We continued and did extremely well, and won it in front of a lot of West Indians. So it was quite exciting for us, and that in itself gave us that impetus to do well in Test matches, which we did. And so that was I think the starting point of our great run.
Clive, the wonderful 100 you scored in the final, where does that rank when you look back in your career in your achievements?
Yeah, one of the best innings that I've played, because we were struggling. We were 2 or 3 down, and Kanai and myself, I got dropped, and from then on, I started time the ball quite well. I said, hey, this looked like my day. And playing the Australians too, now they were not the best runners between the wickets, so we knew that we had to look for those sort of things too.
And lifting the trophy, the first ever World Cup at Lord's, how do you recall those feelings?
Oh yes, well that was. You'll never be another first. So, to be the champions of the world, and we 5 million people, and we made a lot of people happy.
That's Clive Lloyd. Kelvin's been on Twitter. He says, I was there in 75, only time I've been to Lord's. I think he liked it. Noisy, uncomfortable seats, pitch invasion, Viv's run-outs, Fredericks hit wicket, Lloyd was amazing, and Norman Wisdom sat behind me. and it was very hot. If you don't know who Norman Wisdom is, by the way, you're that young, I suggest you just go on a search engine to look at that. What the Australians make of it, I wonder. Let's hear from Ian Chappell on the run-out, on the World Cup final as a whole. Ian Chappell.
We all got off the bus, and there was a lot of West Indies supporters all milling around behind the pavilion there at Lord's when we got off the bus. And they were terrific. Lloydie's 100, I sent them in because it was an early start, and I thought if it's going to do anything, do something there. I reckon we had them 3 for 51 or something like that, and I reckon we had Rowan caught behind off a no ball from Jeff Thompson. But Rowan, I mean, I knew Rowan pretty well because I'd captained against him in the West Indies in 73, and I'd played against him here 68-9. So I knew Rowan fairly well, and I knew he was a bloody good player. And he played, I mean, he doesn't get much kudos, really. Lloydie gets all the kudos for making 100, but he really steadied things after, we got some early wickets. And then Lloydie just came in and blasted us.
Here's Lloyd. With his first ball, he comes in to Ian Chappell, captain to captain, and Chappell is on the front foot. There's hesitation between running between the wickets. There's an appeal. He's out! Brilliant bit of fielding by Richards. A brilliant bit of fielding by Richards. Runs Turner out.
The first one I don't think it was out. I never thought it was out, and I've seen photos since. Alan Turner. If you look at the photo, he's level with the stumps, and the bails are not very far off. Because I remember looking back, he was a bit. I mean, there was an easy run there, but he was a bit slow out of the blocks. So I looked back to see how he was going, and even just looking back, I thought that's not out, but it was given out.
There's Ian Chappell waiting as Roberts comes in, bowls to him, and he shuffles across outside the off stump, plays it square on the offside. A misunderstanding between batsmen and fielders, and he's run out. Greg Chappell is run out. Richards threw the ball there and hit the stumps. The off bail came off.
I mean, if Greg didn't think there was a run, he would have sent me back because, he said afterwards he thought there was a run there. But Viv threw him down from side on, and then I got run out.
Stopped by Richards, and the ball comes into Lloyd. There's the third run out. Ian Chappell run out for 62.
Every time Australia have got themselves into some sort of position where they look as though they're attacking with success, a run out has happened.
And then there was two more. Well, the last wicket fell to a run out. I think they tried to sneak a single, and Derek Murray threw the stumps down with the gloves on. Even though we were chasing a big total, I thought we had a chance of getting him. Dennison, Tomo.
They got you close.
Yeah, they got us very close. So it was, as I say, apart from losing, you never like to lose, but it was a very good day for cricket, I thought.
Ian Chappell basically saying, it was great for world cricket. Is that the way you look at it, Derek Murray? Great for West Indian cricket, but also great for world cricket. Is that the way it felt to you at the time? Or looking back even more so?
Yes, it did, because, as I say, from the start of the tournament, it was experimental. By the time we got to the final, you knew that this World Cup cricket was here to stay. It was no longer an experiment. It was absolutely successful. The English public, and in the English public, I am including all those West Indians, Pakistanis who were living there. They just came out. The grounds were full. The excitement was there. And so getting to the final was a really, really special day. And you get to Lord's and you see all different people there, different in the sense that, yes, there were loads of West Indians, loads of English, but there were the Australians, New Zealanders. Everybody had come out to see this special occasion, the final. Lord's at its most glorious, Midsummer's Day. You couldn't want anything more. And, it really was a great atmosphere. By the time we had got to that stage of the tournament, we were actually going through the preliminary games, and it looked as though the organisers' wish of a West Indies-England final would have come off. But of course, there was England had that extraordinary semi-final with Australia. So it was West Indies, Australia, and really you just walked out onto the field and you just knew this is what any sport would want, the kind of excitement being generated in the crowd. That's the kind of atmosphere you want.
Vivian Richards, everybody knows about the batting, but here we're talking about some pretty amazing fielding as well. I can't imagine a lot of work was done on fielding. Perhaps it was, you'll correct me on that, but that display in the field.
No, that was unbelievable. And then for one person to be hitting the stumps as well, because you tend to think that runouts are usually affected by, the fieldsman getting the ball quickly into the wicketkeeper or the bowler. But Viv actually hit the stumps 3 occasions to run out three players. And I mean, even for a team to get 3 runouts against them, you think they are a little bit unlucky. But in the end, it was 5. I'm really upset that they didn't count the last one as a stump, because I would still love to see, Stump Murray Bowl holder or something like that. But be that as it may, runouts kind of won the game for us, and Viv was at the centre of that.
Mike Bell was on Twitter talking about a game at Old Trafford, actually, India versus New Zealand earlier in the tournament. Says Farouk Engineer played for Lancashire, of course. When he was given out, LBW to Sir Richard Hadley, huge boos. He said, we did what we called a full dog day, ending up in a nightclub in Manchester at 2 a.m. in our cricket whites. Derek, a few weeks on, did you end up in a nightclub the day before you then had to turn out for Warwickshire in a Sunday League game? Or what was the celebrating? How did you celebrate? Because there are photographs I've seen of the Australians actually in the dressing room, all seem to be sort of having a drink and getting on well together after the game. Is that right? Do you have memories of that?
Yeah, we did, have a few moments together as rivals do. But again, everybody had to go back to where they were. And while you imagine that if we'd won, we in London, we're going to go to all the nightclubs, etc., my wife was there in the crowd, so again, you're ready to party. But kind of getting back to the hotel at about 10:30, 11, you just didn't think, what do we do now? It almost was a bit of an anticlimax, but I say almost. It would never be an anticlimax. It just wasn't the partying in the pools in Trafalgar Square or anything like that. It was far more sedate, and some of our players had to go off to get back to their counties.
So, Derek, you've never jumped in the water at Trafalgar Square. Perhaps you need to come and do that celebration. We'll all be there to help you relive that moment, perhaps, of 1975. But the thing is, Andy,
that would be tremendous.
Andy, any more to throw at us in terms of the final and the tournament?
Well, Clive Lloyd's innings were one of the greatest in international cricket history, and one of the most influential, I guess, in terms of helping to popularise the shorter formats of the game. An 82-ball 100, that was the fastest in ODI cricket until 1980, and it remained the fastest 100 in World Cup cricket until 2003. It was... To put it in context of the scoring rates at the time, that first World Cup runs were scored at 3.9 per over. The 2015 World Cup, the most recent one, it was 5.6. In 1975, there were 28 sixes hit in the entire tournament in 15 matches, so just under 2 per match. And in the 2015 World Cup, it was fractionally under 10 per match. So for someone to play an innings like that in the context of cricket at the time, I think you could say that was one of the most influential individual innings played in the history of cricket. Derek, would you agree?
Certainly, and certainly the impact it had on us on the day was outstanding. To get to 291 and then have your captain lead the way in that, that was the icing on the cake.
Dennis, did you think he was here to stay after all that? And we should point out, by the way, Dennis, the other thing that perhaps we haven't illustrated here for those that sort of take it as being commonplace now, that, of course, Andy referenced this, so many games actually played on the same day, let alone sort of live TV coverage, all that sort of thing. It was very difficult for you to keep in touch, I suppose, a little bit with the tournament and games you weren't involved with. But did you think, and had experienced enough to think this is here to stay?
Yes, definitely. the great thing was that county cricket was going through a very difficult time in the 60s. We had that letter that went out to all the counties saying, were you enjoying cricket? And I think there was a certain club, I don't think I should name them, but most of the players said they weren't. We came along with Gillette Cup cricket, 65 overs, and that was a renaissance for the game. And it got better and better, and suddenly we had World Cup cricket 10 or 11 years later, and it was just a wonderful summer. Some marvellous cricket being played, great side, the greatest players in the game all coming together with the great weather and some marvellous cricket. And you knew the cricket was the winner. West Indies were the winners, they were the best side. Definitely thought, after being part of it and playing in it, that one-day cricket had really finally arrived with international cricket and a World Cup, and that was going to be the way forward.
Derek, Dennis, it's a privilege to hear you two talk about this now. Thank you very much for your time. Andy Zaltzman, have you any last-minute thoughts to throw our way?
Well, just on England in that tournament, their bowlers collectively averaged 17 runs per wicket. That's the lowest by any team in a World Cup, and went for 2.5 and over. They're the only team ever to go for under 3 and over for an entire World Cup. So I guess they put in a pretty decent performance on just that one slightly freakish game. Gary Gilmore took 5 wickets in the final as well, so 11 wickets in the semi and final for 62 runs in 24 overs combined. Only one other bowler has ever taken more than 6 wickets in a semi and final combined, and that was Shane Warne, who had 8 wickets in the semi and final of the 99 World Cup.
As always, Andy, outstanding. Thank you for that. I look forward to hearing from Andy again in the other programmes. As I say, to Derek Murray and also to Dennis Amiss, thank you both, especially for those who would have enjoyed listening to their commentary at the time. I think we'll leave the final word to the former BBC cricket correspondent, Brian Johnson.
West Indies have won by 17 runs at 8:42 p.m. at Lord's on June the 21st, 1975. I wish all of you could have been here with us to enjoy it. And with that, goodbye from Lord's and back to all your studios.